Hey everyone, my name is Jonathan from Academy of Mind, and today we're joined by Amy Markwood from Markwood Consulting. We've worked with Amy for a few years while she was in charge of e-learning at Restoration Technical Institute, and they've been a client of ours for many years. Before Amy started working in e-learning, she had a long and fruitful career at Dale Carnegie as the VP of Professional Development. Amy specializes in e-learning design and development using Articulate Storyline 360, and she's also a consultant, speaker, and trainer. But I don't want to, rant and summarize her whole career and spiel. So, Amy, why don't you, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Oh, well, thank you so much, Jonathan. It's such a pleasure to be here. And yeah, I've had quite an exciting career. As you mentioned, I spent over 20 years with Dale Carnegie. I started back in the 1900s, so it was a long time ago. And it was really a great journey, pretty much in leadership development, focused on professional development. And I worked with thousands of people all up and down the East Coast. Training people from Fortune 500 companies. And eventually I got into the sales side, consulting, had a lot of success in sales, had $1 million contract globally, which was really exciting. And I learned a lot from that and really wanted to take Dale Carnegie into the next century. And e-learning was something that was really a passion of mine. So ended up following my heart and got involved with Restoration Technical Institute. And there I got to work with Lisa Lavender, who I can't say enough great things about. She's such an innovator and such a forward thinker. And she pretty much wanted to have an e-learning department. And that's what I did. Pretty much anything to do with e-learning. She gave me resources. She invested in me and supported me. And that's how I came to know you guys. And pretty much my passion has always been e-learning design and development, and recently started my own company where I focus in specifically designing and developing e-learning with Articulate Storyline.
Sure. So tell me a little bit more about some of the training, the professional development stuff, the training stuff you did at Dale Carnegie. And, obviously your focus is e-learning and has been for a while now, and you're very happy about that. But tell me a little bit about some of the more traditional training stuff, I guess you were doing versus what you're doing now. Because I think some companies are definitely a little hesitant, especially if they're first starting out with e-learning, particularly in some more traditional industries. So yeah, I'd love to hear some of the traditional training stuff you were doing versus I guess the e-learning and stuff you're doing now.
Okay. Well, I guess the first thing I should say is that when it comes to traditional training, face-to-face, in-person training, I can't help but feel that Dale Carnegie is the best that's out there. They've been in business over 110 years. It took over 2 years for me to even become trained and certified to facilitate their programs. They take their training very seriously. And that was with a master's degree in education. So they have very high expectations and they have incredible results. I really focused mostly in professional development, and I'll say mainly their flagship program, which was called the Dale Carnegie course, Skills for Success. And that pretty much focused on increasing self-confidence, human relation skills, communication skills, presentation skills, leadership development skills, how to develop cooperation instead of compliance in your team, how to reduce stress and worry. It was just amazing stuff. And I saw magic happen in that program. I saw people transform. And I knew there was magic in learning. And I wanted to somehow put that into an e-learning environment. I wanted to make it electronic. I also focused a lot on presentation skills training. I was a certified high impact presentations trainer. And focused on how to deliver high impact presentations.
Right.
And that was exciting too. When I was a consultant, I was actually an award-winning consultant because of the size of the account. But what was exciting about that account was the fact that I was able to use some of my instructional design experience because I wanted to work with this company, and Dale Carnegie has so much amazing content. And I just wanted to take something off the shelf and make it really look like the client. So I really tried to co-brand my presentation, and I got a lot of great learning lessons out of that. It was very difficult, but eventually I just had to tear myself away and say, I need to go out on my new path.
I understand. So, and it's interesting you mentioned like presentations. First of all the training you were talking about sounds really important. The different things you were talking about, like improving collaboration and cooperation versus compliance, leadership, all these sort of things that I think can sometimes get neglected in businesses. And that's really what builds up culture and keeps people around. So, sometimes I think even with professional development and training, certain things can get lost where if it's not like a legally required certification or something that, is required of employees to do, it's not necessarily important. But, I think differently. I'm sure based on what you're doing and you're passionate about, you'd think differently. But it's interesting how much stuff goes into e-learning and creating the materials regarding like some of the stuff you're doing now with e-learning, because you mentioned presentations. Is some of the stuff you're working on more like presentation materials, whereas other stuff is for like a self-paced course that, employees could take on their own?
E-learning is such a huge bucket, and there's so much that you can focus on. And really, it's kind of funny, but when it comes to e-learning, I think of myself almost as a one-trick pony, because I'm really just focusing on one software, one target audience, and and pretty much I like to do the whole project from beginning to end. I kind of consider myself a one-stop shop.
Is it mainly presentations, or do you do some stuff for like helping build courses?
Right now, yeah, I'm working with a startup. One of my clients is a startup, and something that we're doing is building up their learners and developing soft skills in them. One of the things is presenting with PowerPoint. And so I have been coaching and creating content and videos on best practices, like how to best do the Q&A session, for example. There are ways to do it and to make sure that you get to a Q&A session. That's a very important part of a presentation.
Right.
So I'm working kind of as a coach, but mainly my main focus is to take, if a subject matter expert wants to talk, I take their presentation and I convert it into an e-learning product. That's pretty much what I focus on.
So it is a lot of like the live presentation and instructor-led stuff.
Yes. And so I guess that is something else that makes me kind of different from other e-learning designers and developers, because I really like to work with the subject matter expert. I like to work with someone that's passionate about a topic or a lesson or a speech or a presentation that they have had, that they're obsessed with maybe their whole life. And maybe they have a bunch of old training materials or manuals and PDFs or Post-it notes. I don't know. I like them to just give it to me, give me their idea. And then I like to use their voice. I like to show their face. I like to show their images from their expertise,
their brand colors, and
yes.
The way I
describe it, and I love to make it all theirs. Yeah,
absolutely. The way I describe it a little bit, and sorry to interrupt, is because I'm passionate about like the branding and stuff too. I think it's important. Obviously, your brand is much more than like the colors you're using and your fonts, but those do play into, you want to make all your training stuff, whether it's internal or going to other organizations, you want to make it look and feel like you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, I guess I'll ask this first. Why is e-learning important? Especially, starting at the very beginning, because it's interesting because you have this career that started, pretty much before e-learning existed. And so that's why you're an expert and all about professional development and training. You have this long career at Dale Carnegie, and then you moved into e-learning. But especially for those that are, I guess, really starting out with the basics, maybe they're like sending worksheets on email, and maybe they're like, don't have a system. They have never worked with an instructional designer.
Yeah.
Why is e-learning important for clients, regardless of your industry and the type of training you're doing?
Okay, great. Let me first start out by saying that when I was 8 years old, my dad brought home an IBM PC Junior. So that's dating myself. But once I touched that keyboard, I was hooked. I just had a natural desire to create music, to create programs with little moving characters. I liked to create slides, and I liked to create maps. I liked to have navigation and choices for the learner to be able to go from one slide to another slide. I loved making buttons that were interactive that would lead to a whole different scenario, and hotspots. And I just loved everything about it. And what I was actually doing is scenario-based e-learning before it was even a concept, before there was even an internet.
It was meant to be.
Yes, it was meant to be. And so that was always in the very back of who I am. I'm a very much a self-professed nerd. I've always been nerdy. I would always rather read or study or work on the computer. I don't like TV. I don't usually do what everybody else is doing. I've always been kind of a trailblazer, crazy person. But let me get to your question. Why is e-learning important? I want to say that there are 6 main reasons why e-learning is important. A lot of this information I've gotten from different sources. My favorite resource, one of my favorite resources online is elearningindustry.com.
I've definitely pulled a lot of, I write blogs all the time. They definitely have some great stuff on there.
Yeah. So I would say first, I'm just going to keep myself on line here so I know what I want to say. First, sure. E-learning speeds up employee training. In a 2017 survey, e-learning can significantly reduce employee training time. It usually takes about 40 to 60% less employee time than learning in a traditional classroom setting. It enables faster delivery because employees can access the e-learning, the material anytime they want, anywhere they are. They can set their own pace. They can train whenever they have spare time. Sometimes in the market, it's called, or in the industry, it's called just-in-time learning.
Yep.
But number one, e-learning speeds up training. So saving time, that's a huge thing companies want to do. Save time and have it be more effective. Along the lines of effective, number 2, e-learning is cost effective. Cost reduction is usually the main reason why companies switch from traditional classroom-based training to e-learning.
That's a big one. That's a big one. And I think some companies don't necessarily see it that way, but even just starting off, there's no travel expenses. Even going back to the first point, everything, if it's courses online, everything's accessible for, employees or whoever is accessing the training to just log in and train whenever, they want, essentially.
Yes, it's very convenient. And not only that, that's what people want.
It's true.
Learners don't want to have to sit in a classroom and be taken away from so many other things they want to be doing for hours at a time. And a lot of times it might not even be that effective.
That's true. And if they do, why not just do a presentation online? You could do it. You could do it easily as effective, if not arguably more effective, with good presentation materials. It's and this is the world we live in. Just like you said, it's kind of expected now.
Yeah. I would say the third reason e-learning is so important is because e-learning helps maximize knowledge retention. That's kind of the purpose of learning, right? Is to learn something. According to research, e-learning can increase knowledge retention rates by 25 to 60%, simply because it's much more engaging than learning in a traditional classroom setting. Also, it provides learners with interactive content, multimedia, exciting visual imagery. They can retain a lot more of what they learn because our mind is not thinking words, it thinks in pictures. And so it's great to be listening to a traditional face-to-face in-person training, but it's not going to have as much impact as you learning as an adult, looking at images that are telling a story.
That's true.
So the retention is really important. You can also include with e-learning interactive quizzes, knowledge checks, assessments. Yep. You can find out the temperature of how much people know or what they don't know. With an LMS, you can even have reports that show exactly where the gaps are. It's so exciting,
Yeah, not even to jump in, but now you have my mind racing because this is like what it's all about. The reporting, and just to go back a little, you were talking about multimedia and of course interactive quizzes. I think where it becomes so powerful too is, and I like to call blended learning. I know this is a term a lot of people use, but you're blending all these types of media together in this formal course where a learner can go in and watch a video, then they can answer a quiz, and they can take a survey to give you feedback on certain things. And they can look at, like, maybe it's a really nice SCORM course. There's interactive pop-ups and different. So I think some of this stuff is almost impossible in a sense to do in person because you can't. That's what the technology has allowed us to do, to where, and going back, if you want to have a speaker, you can do an instructor-led session and have, for instance, you could create very nice materials for them to present and do a Q&A, and then you could send them off on a course and they could have all access to all this amazing stuff to take in their own time and really learn and retain knowledge and also not be bored.
Mm-hmm. So it's exciting stuff. I love talking with someone that's, like-minded. Another thing, I would say the fourth reason, e-learning leads to higher productivity. Another huge, important point that companies and businesses need. They want higher productivity. E-learning, self-paced online learning, whatever you want to call it, it leads to higher productivity because they can train at home and then they can focus on their core tasks while they're at work. Learning in their free time sometimes can lead to better performance, higher efficiency, especially because with e-learning, they can revisit any of the information that they don't know whenever they need it. So that's the beautiful thing I think about e-learning. It's there when you need it, and it's not being forced upon you when you don't want it and you're not receptive to it. So there's lots of good stuff in that.
That's an interesting take, actually. I hadn't thought of what you just said, because it's like you don't have to be worrying about taking notes. Sure, you could take notes, but sometimes you might not be ready to, or, it's always up there for you to go back, and even if you just want to refresh your brain. So I think that's a really important one.
Yeah. There's a quote, a statistic I had here. According to IBM statistics, e-learning can increase productivity by 50%. Employees can engage in training courses at any convenient time, home, during downtime at work, even on the go. This allows them to quickly get up to speed, everything they need to learn, and training doesn't conflict with any daily tasks.
There you go.
Yeah. Another reason, e-learning fosters better collaboration. One of the things when I was with Dale Carnegie, and it's not about Dale Carnegie, it's business everywhere. No matter what business you're in, no matter what industry you're in, I bet you there are problems with communication in your company. Somewhere there is a communication breakdown, top to bottom to top, peer to peer, manager to what, you name it, there's going to be communication problems. E-learning is so beautiful because it puts everybody on the exact same page, literally.
It's true.
It provides useful communication, collaboration tools. It helps build a strong collaborative workforce because, for example, one of the programs I use is Review 360. It's with Articulate. And so when I create an e-learning program, I can send out a prototype to my client and to their development team to review and put as many comments on it as they want. What they like, what they don't like, what they want to see, what they want to have taken out, what they want to add. And I'm able to resolve those comments. They're connected directly to the slide. And different people from the development team can all collaborate, and everybody's seeing the same information. So it's an incredible, efficient tool that I'm very grateful for. Yeah. And then I'm going to go to my very last point because it's the biggest one with e-learning and why it's so important, and probably what everybody else wants to know. And that is that e-learning significantly increases revenue and return on investment. People are afraid to say that. I'm not. I don't need to go into statistically prove. I've watched it. I've seen it. I know what you can get for $10,000 of my time as a speaker presenting to you for a couple of hours versus what you can get for $10,000 and investing in creating a product that's a 15-minute module that you can sell and promote to the world. The value and the scalability of what you can do with that product, it's insane. So over 40% of companies say that e-learnings help them to boost revenue levels. And companies that offer training technology, including e-learning, have generated more than 25% higher revenue per employee. There's all kind of stuff that's happening right now: micro learning, social learning, just-in-time learning, adaptive learning. There's virtual reality, and LMSs are the future, and they're here to stay.
Absolutely. I agree. So
I'm passionate about that, Jonathan.
No, I understand. That's why you kind of like, I'm a shock. It's so much good information, but I'm glad because this is definitely helpful. So yes, obviously we have so many points about why e-learning is important. Especially, I hope this helps some people who are still hesitant, maybe the smaller companies who aren't fully invested in it yet. Let's go back to some of the logistics of e-learning. And for instance, we talked about Articulate Storyline 360. That's of course an authoring tool. And I know about this, and you can use authoring tools to create what's called, SCORM courses or instructor-led sessions like presentation materials. And Articulate Storyline, your favorite authoring tool, as well as other authoring tools. Every instructional designer or company might have their preference for whatever reason, but these tools allow you to create e-learning courses that work. I like to think of it as they follow the standard e-learning format for courses and materials to work with what we offer, a learning management system, or as you mentioned a couple of times, an LMS for those that don't know. So I guess tell us a little bit about like the logistics of like an authoring tool, why Articulate Storyline is 360 is important, and then how you see an LMS and how learning management systems play into the whole thing.
Great. All right. Well,
I know. Sorry, I don't mean to. Sometimes I can be long-winded, but authoring tools, authoring tools and LMSs, because some people are not super familiar with these tools.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I'm going to go right to the beginning. Authoring tool, course authoring tool. That is how you actually design and develop your e-learning product. There are all kinds of software packages out there, but my absolute favorite is Articulate. Articulate Storyline. So Articulate is kind of like a Microsoft. Articulate has a suite of products. Among their suite of products, they have a program that's called Storyline 360. That is my preferred choice of a program that I like to use to develop my e-learning. They also have another web-based program that's called Rise 360 that's very popular in the marketplace. It's very great for text-heavy, knowledge-based courses. But I really love the beauty of Articulate Storyline because you're working on a canvas.
Mm,
And I don't have my brand that I want to put on anything. I want to take other people's ideas and make it completely theirs. So
right.
I feel like I just make it. Now, I love everything about Articulate, and they don't pay me to say this, but I definitely am their biggest fan. As an e-learning designer and developer, I made the conscious decision to use only the best course authoring tool in the marketplace, that is Articulate Storyline 360. I love everything about the software, from the capabilities, features, the constant improvements, their customer service. I'm actually in love with everything about the company itself. Articulate is a human-centered organization that puts people first. Their values are amazing. They're a completely virtual company, and I look up to them so much. Lucy Soros, their fearless leader and CEO, is my virtual BFF. She doesn't know it, but I stalk her. No, I'm just kidding. On LinkedIn. No, she's an inspiration to me in so many ways. And Articulate, the software company, has one global training partner. And that training partner is called eLearning. eLearning is where I learned how to use Storyline. And a couple of years ago, I got certified in basic and advanced Storyline training. Best training I ever received. Probably the best online trainer I ever had the pleasure of receiving instruction from. Her name was Tara. And I think of myself as an unofficial cheerleader for that company. Their methodology is the only way I like to develop and do my things. So their methods, their approaches, there's a ton of people out there that like, oh, we'll teach you Storyline. And these people are the only legit partner and the only way I want to do things. So as you can see, I am an extremist. I want to do it the right way. And Learning is the way I want to do it. So I'm their biggest cheerleader. And then when it comes to creating programs and e-learning, I've done everything. I've created probably 40 or 50 different SCORM files, everything from small videos to 5-minute modules to a scenario-based learning branches to you name it. I've done
You've done it all.
To 4-hour courses with certifications and assessments and everything. So I've done the whole thing, from taking the idea, creating it, designing it, developing it, publishing it. And then what do you do with it? You need a place to host it. It's like having a website without a website address. You need
that's a great
place
way to put it,
to have it. So once you have this beautiful, amazing, innovative program and product, you need to somehow be able to share it with the world. One of the ways that you can do that, and a lot of people have been doing it ever since the COVID era and everybody going virtual and remote, blended, lost my train of thought because I was getting so excited.
After you create the course with Articulate Storyline, you have the beautiful product and you need the learning management system.
So then you need the learning management system. And so I had the pleasure of being able to research and interview a whole bunch of different LMSs, a whole bunch of different learning management systems. There are so many out there, and so many of them. It's important, if people are going to look for a learning management system, that they need to know what they want and what they want it to really do.
Right.
And for me, because I'm such a visual person, for me, it was important that a learning management system was clean, so that and easy for the learner to use and interact with. Also easy for me as a administrator on the back end to upload and to troubleshoot and to create face pages and make the LMS look so beautiful. So I loved getting to see so many different learning management systems. There were a couple that were very expensive. The money, how much you can spend on an LMS varies very greatly.
There's a lot. There's so many. I mean, I've done tons of research on this subject, and it's like there's over 1,000 LMSs every single
Yeah.
week. I'm finding new companies, and some of these companies say they're not an LMS, but they're really just there's a lot of these learning management systems are really, training or e-learning software out there.
Yeah. I mean, when I went through the process recently, I remember that one kind of stood out because it had a really cool course authoring tool that was integrated into it. It was like a built-in way that you could make flashcards and little interactivities. It was really cool. But that was a bell and whistle that cost too much, to be quite honest. And didn't really need that feature because I love and I can do anything I want with Articulate Storyline and Camtasia. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't need it. And you don't need to have an integrated course authoring tool. And then you want to think about the user interface, what it looks like, what the learner sees. And after looking at so many different systems, I think so many of them were trying to put too much into a screen. And just personally, maybe as a developer and designer, I think less is more.
I agree.
And I thought Academy of Mine was clean, efficient, practical, effective. I loved the people. Brendan that helped me get set up was just amazing. And Yash, I mean, Val, everybody was great. Their client services team, you guys customize and make everybody feel important, and can't say enough good things about you guys too.
Well, thank you so much. That's very nice. And obviously I'm happy to hear that. When you first connected with us, I wasn't here yet, but I've been here for 14 months since, and ever since we connected, I knew that it was, I'm really glad obviously to be having this conversation, and I'm glad that happened so that we are having this, and we connected and stuff. Going back a little, it's interesting you talk about, almost one of the most important things of a learning management system is the simplicity and is it effective, right? It's not just about course authoring or creating courses. And, for those that don't know, like we do have a basic course authoring tool. Like you can create quizzes, assignments, text modules, upload stuff like PowerPoints, like a lot there. I mean, it's pretty good in our platform, and a lot of platforms have that, but it's very interesting. And I'm glad you mentioned that shouldn't necessarily be the make or break of customers, because even a lot of customers that onboard with us will help them create SCORM courses, or, now if they need articulate stuff, I'm definitely going to reach out to you. Because it's not necessarily like there's a right or wrong way, but really if you really want the best design stuff, you're talking about Articulate, which I also think they're the best. They just give you so many options to design and package your e-learning a perfect way. And not to gloss over this, the special part about learning management systems is they're pretty much a software created to work perfectly with SCORM. For instance, the file you're creating with these authoring tools. So you create your beautiful presentation or 5-minute or 1-2 hour course, whatever it is in, let's say, Articulate Storyline, or whichever exact authoring tool you created in there. And then you can literally just upload it directly in the learning management system. And then another really important thing is the administrative side. Can your managers, your admins, can they upload courses easily? Can they enroll learners? What about e-commerce on a platform like ours? We give you like landing pages that you can advertise courses free of charge. You
also let us customize, and we could put up our brand, our logo, our color scheme. Not everybody does that. That was another plus.
And I know you know all about that. You're into that because you do the same thing with instructional design, which is, it's very important too, regardless if it's just an internal program or, I mean, it's even more important if you're selling training to other businesses. You want it to be packaged professionally. You don't want to have, other organizations aren't going to want your vendor ties on there. They're going to want it all about them. And then the last thing I want to touch on really quick is reporting. Obviously, with e-learning, because I think it's one of the most important parts. It's so easy with e-learning to be able to report on the performance of learners.
Yes.
Report on their engagement. How much time are they spending on modules? If they're getting a bad grade on an assignment, can we look back to see that they completed everything before? If they did, are they actually engaged? How are their performance beforehand? Did they show up to the class on Tuesday? All of these things with instructional design and SCORM courses paired with a learning management system, it's all right there in one place. Your learners they just log into one system. Your admins log into one system. And even beyond that, if there's other software like a HubSpot or a Salesforce or something else you're using, you can integrate that with the learning management system. I think that's really, it's like the all-in. I like to look at our platform as the all-in-one platform for professional development, e-learning.
Yes. And that's what's going to help people. The reporting, the tracking, the metrics that's being measured. That's what's going to help companies be able to make data-driven decisions and have evidence for why they're making choices that their business, and this is so important. In the past, we kind of been guessing and throwing ideas out there. We've got proof in the pudding here.
That's absolutely true. This has been like an amazing conversation. I'm so glad. This is my favorite podcast we've done. I think this is going to be so helpful for not just people starting out with e-learning, but also more experienced. I think we really covered everything.
A lot.
Yeah, so thank you so much again for coming out. Obviously, is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience, where they can find you? I'll obviously put all your stuff in the description and all that stuff, but just if there's anything you want to leave people with.
If I had to leave anybody, I want to say, first of all, it's been a total pleasure. As you can see, my passion and exuberance bubbles out of me. And for the most part, I always have to just try to contain my excitement. And what I want to leave everyone with is e-learning is here. It's here to stay. It's the best possible way for you to get a message across to your people in the fastest amount of time, for the least amount of money, for the biggest bang for your buck, and have the biggest ROI. If they want to use software, I suggest and recommend Articulate Storyline. If you don't know how to use Storyline, I suggest you go to Yukon Learning. They are the best. If you are in the restoration industry or cleaning and inspection industries, check out RTI Learning, because they have the best LMS that they have developed internally. And if you're interested in getting to know more about me, I would love to connect. I am on LinkedIn, and it's Amy Markwood, LinkedIn. I love to make new connections. I like authentic relationships. I like what you see is what you get with me. I'm a passionate person. I am all in. And if there's anything that you have a burning desire to share with the world, I'd like to think that I breathe life into your legacy.
I love it. I love it. And for anyone listening, I'm going to put Amy's LinkedIn and some contact info in the description for, people that they're like searching on LinkedIn. You can click the links. So, and definitely, Amy's an amazing speaker, as you can hear from this, this episode. And obviously he's a great instructional designer and awesome person. So I recommend everyone connecting to her for your e-learning stuff and stuff like that. And then obviously, if you guys need a learning management system, feel free to reach out to us. You can find us at Academy of Mind, academyofmind.com. I'll put our stuff in the URL too, but we're just like that. And our founder, Yash, is just like that. If we're speaking and we truly do think that there's another learning management system where you're not ready for a solution, we're not the type of company that's going to force you to, or tell you need to purchase this or that. I think both our company and Amy is just like that. We're here to help. So if you have questions with e-learning or you're ready to get started, definitely. And I hope this episode helped some of you guys. So thanks again for everything, Amy. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks.